Sue Kench is the Global Chief Executive of KWM, King and Wood Mallisons. She's an identical twin, mother of 3, married to a professional musician, and modestly refers to herself as the Stephen Bradbury of the firm. But don't be fooled for a moment. There is nothing accidental about the powerful rise of this legal dynamo. Welcome, Sue. So, how does it feel to be at the top of the mountain, literally 61 floors up?
Yes, well, I was reflecting recently, it's about 40 years since I graduated from Macquarie, and there are any number of lessons as I look back. But here today, quite incredible, and it's been quite an incredible journey.
So was this the end goal? Was this the ambition?
Never in the plan. I did law, as many do, because they wonder what else they might do. Law's been in the family for many years, many decades before I even started. So it seemed to me like it was a great education. I could couple that with economics and accounting, etc. But in terms of, did I expect to end up at what was then Mallisons? Did I expect to travel the world? And did I expect to lead the Australian firm and indeed the entire global firm? No, it was never part of the plan. But amazing experiences. I've met incredible people, and this firm is truly full of incredible people with such expertise that I know I can pick up the phone and solve some of our most difficult problems with great minds on them.
Let's go back to the very beginning, Macquarie University. What are your memories of those days?
So that was a long time ago, that's 40 years ago, and boy has it changed. But I think hopefully the same in terms of the learning opportunities. You know, it was a mix of lectures and tutorials. It really did encourage us to think, so it was definitely not read a few books and rote learning. It was very much collaborative learning, dialogue learning, put out your ideas and don't be afraid about them. So when you walked in that room, you had a sense of where the conversation might go. That was quite new across the law schools at that time.
Were you a studious student?
My first year, perhaps not, although it was a mix of law and also accounting subjects. So I guess by the end of the year you had become studious because it was quite a lot of work. And you know, way back then we didn't have iPads and computers and everything, so it was note-taking. But I was, I guess, a little bit famous because I had different coloured notepads for different subjects. And that was really so that you could pick up the different subjects from all of the paper that lied on the floor, and I passed them down the generations, probably, some of those notes.
What made you choose Macquarie?
I lived in Killara, grew up in Killara.
So it was close, proximity.
It was close, and I wanted to do a law degree with the commerce and accounting. And so both of those schools really had good reputation, and luck would have it that it ended up being a really great choice.
Now, you told me about becoming unwell.
Towards the end of my degree, I got glandular fever. I was quite ill. So I had to drop a subject, and then the big question was, what would I pick up to compensate that in the following semesters? So I picked up family law. You're dealing with people's lives and emotions and children, and commercial law is important, but fundamentally that's about commerce and money, and that's important too. But these were relationships which are at the heart of some really big problems, and I guess in the learning of all of that, I also knew that I could not practice in that area because it was so emotional and it impacted children and families, and how could you not take some of those problems home all the time? And I think I knew that would be very difficult for me. That said, it was a terrific course, and whilst I took it by chance, I ended up winning the David Opaz Memorial Prize. It was the inaugural prize for family law, and you might remember that David Opaz, it was a terrible story, you know, died from the bombing. So it was fantastic that Macquarie ended up having that prize, and it still does. And you know, as you can hear, I remember it. It was such a significant moment for me, but also I took that course by chance, learned so much, and then ended up winning that prize. It changed the way I thought about law and what I might do.
Where was your first job? Where did you start?
So back then in 1984, I joined Smithers, Warren, Davenport and Mant, great firm. It was a predecessor firm to the now DLA, and it went Smithers, Warren, Phillips Fox, and then DLA, Phillips Fox. So great firm, great choice of mine, I must say. Way back then I had fantastic learning, I had great mentors, and I learned a lot.
And did you have confidence that you were a young woman in a male-dominated industry making your way?
So yes, but on the other hand, I think every firm that I have worked at, I've been incredibly lucky to have people who just saw me for what I could do and not from a gender perspective. So I've always had great training, and I've made really...
I was going to say, and what do you think is your specific skill set? What sets you apart from everybody else?
I'm quite good at spotting what's important, you know, the big issues and the little issues and what you can leave. Mm-hmm. And I should say that's come because people trained me, took me to meetings, and so through that it's sort of almost, some of it happens by osmosis. Some of my early mentors would get the red pen out and, you know, delete half my drafting and suggest I go away and do other things. But again, you know, not taking that personally, but being open to the learning that brings. And just, I often say to people, read the air, see what's going on, look up from the page and try and work out, you know, what's at the essence. I'm a transactional lawyer. What's at the essence of any deal? You know, follow the money. What do people want to do? How do you manage those risks? But also appreciate that they're doing commercial business deals, and risk is there to be managed. It's not to get in the way of a deal itself. When you said, you know, was I very studious? Sometimes, but there was one subject I got a pass in at university.
That's a good thing, isn't it?
It's a good thing. But again, it's this, you know, don't let the past necessarily influence where you might go, right? Stay open. I got a pass in land law. I practiced and had quite a pretty successful career in sort of real estate. Can you believe that, right? I get a pass in land law, I get credits, distinctions, etc. in every other subject. And I ended up practicing in real estate. So the beauty of real estate is you can see it and you can envision, and it has a place. It has a place in community, it has a place in what I'll call nation building, and frankly it exists all around the world. So I stapled onto real estate tax, stamp duty, corporate law, financing. So again, I didn't narrow my practice into pure real estate, but there's a piece of real estate there in everything I did.
And I want to clarify, we're not talking home ownership real estate, we're talking
big buildings.
Yes,
big buildings like this, which again are, you know, real estate infrastructure. It's an incredibly important sector in an economic
city building
sense.
Okay, so take me forward. Where to from there?
As I say, very lucky that I learnt from great people. So it took me on a journey around the world as well. So I stayed at then Phillips Fox for about 4 or 5 years, I think it was. And then I went and worked in London for a very large sort of magic circle firm over there. I worked there for about 3 years in real estate as well, but adding really to all of the learning that I already had, and probably doing a bit of securitization there too. I came back to Australia.
What brought you back?
What brought me back? Well, that was 1992. There was another recession, or certainly dark economic times. And so London was going through that, and I knew I had to make a decision, would I come back or would I stay? So I came here to work for 2 fantastic practitioners, Frank Zipfinger, who was also sort of a king of stamp duty at the time, and Stuart Dixon Smith, one of the smartest minds I think I've worked with. So again, you know, what was I looking for? I was looking for great people to work with, great mentors, great trainers, a great practice, and somewhere that would launch really the next stage of my career.
Did it?
Absolutely, yeah. Those 2 partners gave me great opportunities, put me into great transactions. And the last transaction I did really before I moved into sort of more of a management field was Barangaroo. Hardest transaction I have ever done, but incredibly fulfilling. And again, same thing, the people that came to the fore in that transaction from this firm really showed what we can deliver when it comes to a difficult transaction, but in a short space of time.
That was a big deal. Tell me about how Barangaroo happened and your role in it. That is a really big deal.
It was an incredible deal. Hard to remember what the city looked like before Barangaroo now. So the big challenge for Barangaroo was, how does it feel connected to the other parts of Sydney? And of course now they've got the ferries, but they've also got that terrific link from Barangaroo through into Wynyard, which links the eastern part of the city. So that was key at the time. But also key at the time was we had offshore investors. I was acting for the money, so to speak. I was acting for the investors, the equity into the office buildings in Barangaroo, a lend-lease fund and an offshore investor as well. And they were fantastic clients. We centred that transaction here on level 61, took over the entire floor. We had teams from everywhere. We had Herbert Smith Freehills on the other side. And we would all come together, recognising, as I say, the tough time constraints in that transaction. But important really was to get everyone together every day. So, 30 or 40 people across all of the teams. And we did that by ensuring that they knew they would be fed, and that was around our amazing kitchen here, who would feed 30 or 40 people every night, let alone providing breakfast, lunch. And
that was part of the strategy. If we keep them here, we'll get it done.
We will get it done, and people would find a reason to be here. And of course that deal happened, it was 24 hours, 7 days a week, and that incredible kitchen would do roast dinners for them on Sundays. Quite extraordinary hospitality. But yes, when we got that deal, it was completely exhausting for everybody.
Satisfying?
Incredibly. And that's another lesson, as hard as it is when you're in the trenches, and that deal pulled everybody's, strength together.
So how do you feel when you wander down there?
Oh, yeah, it's quite incredible, yes, because you see this thing come to life.
Did you find it difficult actually coming to a point where you decided, okay, now I have to blend my work life with my personal life? And was that a difficult thing at that time? Because we are in very different times now.
This difficulty has not gone away, and that is, at the time women tend to make partner is roughly at about the time that they should be thinking about family. There are biological constraints on us. So I think I made partner at about 34. And as I said, I was the first female partner in the real estate team here. And so at a personal level, it was really important for me to get my practice humming and underway, to secure this sense of a client base and to do good work. And that was critically important. It was also important because I was the first female real estate partner that I showed that other women could do this, and so to make it a success, because if it wasn't a success, would they stop and think before they
That's very generous of you.
Other women? Well, it was same thing. It's sort of my interests served greater interests, or vice versa perhaps. So that meant really that bedding a practice down took some years. And so a few years on, you look at your watch and you go, oh, I've forgotten one of the most important things, which is family.
I've forgotten to have my babies.
Forgotten to have children, exactly. So I thought, well, okay, like everything, better get on with this. And I, known my husband for many years, and we weren't married at that time because I'd been pushing. I was saying, when I've got my practice, sort of.
Plenty of time. And then I realised I didn't have much time. So I had 3 children then in quick succession. I was towards the older end of, having children, but luckily I had some sabbatical due. So I had my 2 children, a boy and then a girl, 2 years apart. First didn't sleep, second did.
But at the same time, you were still managing a very senior role.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, grateful to my husband, who took up a lot of that slack. So I ended up having 3 children, and the third was a boy, and that was by surprise. That was not planned.
Happy accident.
A bit like everything else in my career, wasn't planned, but the greatest joy. And the 3 children have, as difficult as it is when we talk about Barangaroo, you look back, with great satisfaction. I have 3 fantastic children, and incredibly, such a joy. But yes, there were moments, particularly, running a busy practice, running the Australian firm and all the travel that brought. But then when I moved on from running the Australian firm to being offered, the global chief executive role, again, not planned. I knew when I took on that position, or it didn't take me very long to work out, that I could not run the global firm from Australia. You really do need to immerse yourself offshore, and it's the first Sino-Australian law firm. I needed to get to know the China firm and indeed Hong Kong, and how things work and the pace that Asia moves at. So I had to move 3 children at critical times in their schooling. One was going into year 7, the oldest boy was moving into year 11, and my daughter was going into year 9. And moving them away from friendships at that time, but also, the Australian curriculum here, all of their sporting activities. And I have to say, I had high mother anxiety at that point. Very difficult decision. But we did. We moved them to Hong Kong, and I'll never look back. It was a fantastic experience for each of them. They've made friendships. They've got to know different cultures. Their friendships are all around the world now, and I look back and it was another one of those incredibly satisfying moments. I'm still in Hong Kong. We've been there for about 6.5 years, and it's a great place.
The kids still there? Or based
there?
No,
all back here for university now. So it's fantastic, right? They will take flight now down here, and we'll connect with them, and they'll come up to Hong Kong from time to time, and they've got friends here and they've got friends there.
Fabulous. Now, in the news of late, we've been hearing about the bullying in the legal profession. Did you ever experience any of that yourself?
Unfortunately, bullying does exist in the profession and has existed for many years. Whether we labelled it bullying or whether we just took it as part and parcel of a profession that works hard and tells you just to be tough. But yes, it has existed for a long, long time, and I think we're now well aware of the extent of it. From me personally, I've been very lucky that the people that I have worked for in an immediate sense have been fantastic to work with. But I have experienced at a level some bullying, and I've also seen it happen, perhaps many, many years ago as opposed to more recently. But yes, seen it firsthand. So I am aware of it. I think social media, the voice that people now have, which perhaps we didn't have way back for whatever reason, or the fact that we just weren't good at calling things out when we should have done. I think now things are being called out and people are less accepting of it, and that should bring about more change.
Now, you refer to yourself very regularly as the Stephen Bradbury of the firm. I don't know why you do that. So explain to me what has been so accidental. Is it accidental?
So for those who don't know the Stephen Bradbury story, Stephen Bradbury was in the Olympics and everyone ahead of him fell over, and so he won the gold medal. Definitely Stephen Bradbury in the sense of this was not in the plan, but I guess the lesson is put yourself in position so if something like that happens, you're there. Because I was the first woman to run one of the large law firms in Australia. That was a bit of a crime looking back. Why was it that I was accidentally the first rather than other firms or this firm actually being a little bit more open to having women in the pipeline for succession? And you can see now across many of the big firms, we do. We've got lots of women running law firms. So that's again a different time, but fantastic to see that hopefully gender does not get in the way, and perhaps it's even something which enables them to be in the mix.
Now, while you sit at the head, is being at the top satisfying?
I think anyone who is leading any organisation will say sometimes you feel quite alone. Yes, incredibly satisfying because they give you opportunities that you would never have. You get to craft and shape a firm as well, but you don't have those clients saying, well done, great, you have to look for the recognition in a different way. And you also have to take time yourself just to pause and reflect and say, what have I managed to achieve for myself and for the firm over a period, because they're marathons. It's not a sprint.
Having said that, how have you crafted and shaped this firm? How would you say that it reflects you and your ideals?
So there are two things which are really important for us, which are basically our people and then our clients. And both of those experiences are somewhat symbiotic. But I think importantly, the client experience, the experience which we give our clients, what we expect, the standards, the sort of service, what we can do for them, that will never exceed the experience we give our people, because it's our people who actually shape that client experience. Sounds quite simple, right? People and clients, but then getting that into play and understood, that's really who I am. It's how do you get those two working together, and understanding that law is a people business.
Any regrets?
Any regrets? I don't live a life focusing on regrets. I'll translate it into, if I was giving people advice for what they might do in their career, I'd say be a little bit more deliberate than I was, plan a little bit more than I did, so that you are in positions where you're in the mix, you're one of the choices. And then from a family or a personal perspective, I would definitely say, particularly when you get to my stage in life and a career, what's important, what's my purpose, and what's my purpose beyond law and beyond the firm. That's my family. And I nearly left that too late. So don't let that be the case. I'm sure it is possible, certainly more possible these days than perhaps in the past, that you can have both. Some people say you can't have both. I think you can have both, but it comes down to asking the right questions, make sure other people are asking the right questions, make sure other people don't make assumptions about you on what you want, and have those conversations and before you have those conversations, I should say, actually work out in a deeper sense what it is that you want and what will be fulfilling for you, but also leaving open the fact that you might not know that all the time, so keep testing it. So not really regrets, but more a case of, would there have been a couple of things I might do differently, have done differently, but I can't live a life of regret because time's passed already now. So it's more a case of, how can I say to people, well, what might you learn out of what I've done? Don't leave it too late.
Fabulous. Sue Kench, thank you so very much. That was delightful.
Been a pleasure. Thank you.